Hello, this is Nayanima Basu from ABP Live, and we will be discussing the G20 Summit with you right here from the Bharat Mandapam.
So as you all know that the G20 Summit has been started with PM Narendra Modi talk. So let's go over to you, ma'am. So the G20 Summit has been started with PM first talk. What are the things he mentioned in his talk?
See, so as it happens in every G20 summit, the president for that year, like this year, Prime Minister Modi is holding the chair for G20, always opens the G20 summit formally with a speech. We have seen that Prime Minister Modi this time made a very significant proposal of making the African Union as the member of G20. That is a proposal that he has just floated. It's been going on, discussions have been on, but it has not been made official yet because the leaders will be now they'll be discussing, doing deliberations, and then based on consensus, African Union will become the member of G20. Apart from that, we heard how Prime Minister Modi stated that the G20 leaders this time, the world leaders, understood the concept of inclusiveness when it comes to having India's presidency. Let us also understand that India has been the only G20 president that has held about 200 events across the country, showing the country's cultural ethos.
Yes, absolutely right. And I also wanted to know what are the actually scheduled for today and tomorrow for G20 Summit. If we'll talk about the today's session, what we are going to see.
Well, that's an important question. Let me first go back to yesterday. What had happened on 8th of September, we saw how the ground was started to roll, how we saw the curtain raiser press conference happened in which the G20 Sherpa, Mr. Amitabh Kant, Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra, and also the chief coordinator and our chief coordinator for G20 and our former Foreign Secretary Harsh Shrinkla spoke about the fact that how G20 under India's presidency is going to focus very much on the global south, because as you know, India wants to become the chair of global south, the face of global south. India has held a conference, a summit of all the global south countries. So it really this time India's prime importance is to become the voice of global south, which is why it wants African Union to be one of the members of G20. Yesterday, we also saw the bilateral happening between US President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Modi. As you all are aware, and as you are aware, Varsha, that US and India share a special relationship. Both leaders, Prime Minister Modi, President Biden, they have a different kind of bonhomie. And this time, the discussion was on defense deals, on trade, on ISET, which is the critical and emerging technologies in which US and India are taking many measures. So we saw that yesterday that meeting happened between both the leaders, and also in terms of trade, India and the US has now closed all the 6 disputes that they had at the World Trade Organization. So it was a historic and important meeting. Today, we will see sessions happening on One Earth, One Family, the concept that we have. And we will also, of course, the leaders will discuss not just African Union membership, but other important issues such as how to make global framework on cryptocurrency, how to bring in and smoothen the process of multinational taxation. Tomorrow, we will be seeing the most important aspect for any G20 summit, especially now when the summit is happening in the backdrop of a Russia-Ukraine war, whether or not India is able to bring out a a joint communique, a G20 Delhi declaration, so to say, because India has come under a lot of pressure from both Russia and China on one side, and the Western countries, the European Union on the other side, what language to take when it comes to the Ukraine war, whether or not to include the Ukraine war aspect at all. We saw it was also a difficult period for Indonesia, which was the last president, and the summit happened in November 2022, when again this discussion came up, but they could come up with a statement with a lot of help, of course, from the Indian diplomatic community. But it remains to be seen tomorrow whether India comes up with its own Delhi declaration.
some countries' president not coming to G20 summit has also raised an issue. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, of course. So let's just start with China, which is
Yeah.
most interesting aspect here, because this is the first time ever a Chinese president has not attended the G20 summit since the G20 grouping was upgraded to the summit level in 2008. Since then till now, we've seen every Chinese president have, they have attended the G20 summits. This is the only summit, and that is why it is historic, where in the Chinese president is not being represented, but he has sent his Premier Li Chang, to hold the deliberations. So this is historic in that way. Now, many people can say that this is because of the tensions between India and China that they are having at the border, the military standoff. But we have really not heard any official reason why Xi Jinping hasn't come. Then, of course, Russian President Vladimir Putin, everybody expected him to come, because, as you're aware, India and Russia are good friends. But then he did not go to the Bali summit also. He did not come in Delhi. But he did give a reason that he has to focus on the ongoing Ukraine war, which is becoming very difficult for Russia as well as for Ukraine. He wants to focus on that operation going on there rather than coming to G20. But he did send his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, who's basically his man Friday for everything. He was there in the Bali summit. He's here now. He knows India, in and out. So it won't be difficult in that manner. So all in all, maybe some leaders haven't come. The Spanish leader could not come because he got tested positive with COVID. But then they have all sent their representatives. As long as they all agree, discuss between themselves, and sign the joint statement, I don't think there will be any issues.
Anything which going to come out from the G20 which will be eye-catching?
Well, in terms of, if you really talk about eye-catching, it is about India's cultural, showcase that India has been doing consistently since it got the presidency last year. India has done several events across the country, including Jammu and Kashmir. So there has been a lot of interest to see how India is being able to do all this, 150, 200 events across the country, showcasing all kinds of cultural ethos that we have, different languages, different clothes we wear, everything. So leaders and their countries have really enjoyed it. But now is the time for serious business, real business. For that, we have to wait and see tomorrow whether or not India, which is the G20 president for the first time, is able to hammer out a joint statement.
So this is all. For more update of G20 summit from Bharat Mandapam, New Delhi, keep watching ABP Live.